Welcome to the 4Ps, episode 123. And as always, you're going to get something personal, something practical, something professional, and something political. The 4Ps. Professional. Political. Practical. Personal. Thanks to everyone who has made the first few episodes of Season 3 a series of record breakers. We've gotten new audiences, reached new heights, delivered different types of content than we have before, and all of this is exciting. We're continuing to grow, and I wanted to thank everyone who has shared, who has watched, everyone who has listened, everyone who's commented, because we are going to continue doing this until we run out of topics. And we're probably not going to run out of topics. So you may or may not have heard of this, but last Thursday was the first time in history that all Major League sports had meaningful games, meaning not preseason. They were all happening on the same day. So NFL, NBA and NHL playoffs, Major League Baseball's pennant chase, plus a major tennis championship. Which in previous years, or even at any other time in my life, would have been, I don't know, whatever the opposite of the apocalypse is, in like a good way, heaven, I don't know. But now, I'm just not feeling it. Given the year that we've had, from COVID to social justice, just to the complete collapse of the social contract that we all have with each other, I'm just not as enthusiastic about the professional and the college sports scene as I've been in the past. I actually forgot that this past Sunday was NFL opening day until like 5:30 p.m. after I'd been out mountain bike riding with my son and starting a backyard landscaping project with both my kids. I say this with complete seriousness and sincerity that I may not watch, I don't know, more than a few minutes of the NFL football all season, like the entire year. I was watching Mets games earlier on, but I think they might be on the cusp of being out of it. So maybe next week I'll tell you what else it is that I am doing with all of this free time that I have whenever I feel the need to disconnect and how that void is being filled. Over the weekend, I finally got around to reading a really interesting book called Rare Breed by a pair of entrepreneurs, Sonny Bonnell and Ashley Hansberger. And it was published about a year ago this week, and it's inspired this week's Practical P. Now, each of us is unique, and no, that's not some Mr. Rogers mumbo-jumbo. I think most people are actually strange and weird, bizarre, and different. And as we get older and wiser and more mature and experienced, it's important that we embrace creativity over conformity, to see virtues where others only see vices. And for those who want to rise to the top without losing their personal charm, the theme of Rare Breed is that rebelliously defying norms can open new paths to success. Now, according to HBR, fewer than 10% of companies actually encourage workers to break the mold. But the key to rebelling is thinking strategically. One, knowing exactly what rules you want to break and why you want to break them. And two, thinking through what you're going to do differently and what the consequences might be. This way you're creating your own conventions, dropping a conservative mindset and adopting a more courageous and spirited and eager attitude can help you flourish like never before. To truly succeed, you have to be obsessed with your goal. Obsession means that you're so focused on attaining your desired outcome that you'll keep pushing well beyond the average person's limits. So my advice is be weird and celebrate what makes you stand out. Being weird is good, and it's good for business. In the overflowing consumer market, it's important to stand out by offering products and services and a personality that can't be found anywhere else. Now, being weird doesn't mean being inappropriate. Respecting colleagues and coworkers and clients is obviously important. We know there are just some boundaries you you can't cross, topics that are just off limits. But what about politics? And talking about politics in the office or with coworkers? To answer this question, I turn to an old friend, Ross Wallenstein, who is the Vice President of Public Affairs at J Strategies, which is an innovative firm that combines allied development and communication strategy with traditional government affairs. I've known Ross since 7th grade homeroom. Us W's need to stick together at the back of the alphabet, which puts us at the forefront of your minds. Ross worked in politics for years and is now in a more corporate environment. So, Ross, is it ever okay to talk about politics at work or with coworkers?
Great question, Matt. Thanks so much for having me. I worked in politics for 12 years. I worked on campaigns in the New York State Assembly, the House of Representatives, and ultimately for the governor of New York. Talking politics in those places and in those offices was expected, it was a matter of course, and it was inescapable. For most people, talking politics at work, I realize, has been taboo, it's been off limits. So if you are going to talk about it, now in the age of Trump, where everyone gets their news by fire hose, here are some quick caveats. One, know who you're talking to. If you have a colleague who may be on the other side of the political spectrum from you or just doesn't like talking politics, stay away from that person. Two, you can refute someone's points, but not disparage the person. I hope it goes without saying. Three, don't bring in anyone who's not otherwise participating. In a pre-COVID world, it was very easy to sit at a lunch table and ask the person who wasn't involved in your heated debate over sandwiches what they thought. Try not to do that. Four, debating politics at work is not an opportunity to change someone's mind. It's not an opportunity to win someone over. It's just a way to alienate other people. Much like in social media, you're not going to win hearts and minds. And five, as Kenny Rogers used to say, know when to walk away, know when to run. If you're in a discussion that's getting heated, perhaps stop, put your pencils down. It's not worth getting fired over a political debate at work unless you do work on a campaign. So those are my 2 cents. I hope that was helpful. Remember, there are 47 days until Election Day, so let's all try to keep our cools until then at work or otherwise. Stay safe, and thanks again for having me, Matt.
Speaking of politics, let's talk politics. We all take polls with a grain of salt, going back to the 2016 election, right? We've learned our lesson not to trust what polls tell us, right? We've stopped even looking at what polls say at this point, right? But what if pollsters learned from their mistakes too? And maybe the national averages don't matter, but maybe we can and maybe we should be looking at the swing state polls from here on out, right? Meaning, maybe it's okay to take a peek, which is good because I just did, and saw that Joe Biden is leading President Trump in 3 states that Trump's campaign has identified as flip opportunities, at least according to the New York Times and some Siena College polls released over the weekend. Now, these new surveys show that Biden is leading by a margin of 50-41 among likely voters in Minnesota. That was an initial Trump campaign target for potentially flipping. He's also, meaning Biden, is leading 46-42 in Nevada and 45-42 in New Hampshire. Now, Biden also has a 5-point edge in Wisconsin, which went for Trump by less than 1% in 2016. So what does all this mean? Well, nothing, you idiots. I told you, you can't be listening to polls. You still have to get out there and vote. And tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your family to vote. It matters. Unless your family's going to go vote for Trump, in which case maybe you should let them know that there's a COVID super spreader election day event, or that absentee ballots are laced with COVID germs as a Democratic Antifa conspiracy. That'll keep them home. Maybe that's how we'll win.